Hello everyone, welcome back to the series on Oracle AI Agent Studio Workflow Agents. So this is part 2 of episode 4 where we are doing a deep dive into the logic nodes covering set variables and the code node, and we will also see how these actually look inside Oracle Fusion. So just to give you a quick walkthrough that this episode is going to have multiple parts as I shared in my earlier episode 4, that is part 1. Each will be covering a different node category within a workflow agents like AI nodes we already covered in earlier episode. This episode will be for the logic nodes deep dive. And if you have not watched the episode 3 for the full node summary and episode 4 part 1 for the AI node search, I would highly recommend starting these first as they set the foundation for what we are going to cover today. And links for those episode 1, 2, 3 and part 1 of episode 4 on the description, and I will also link at the top. And if you're new here and not yet subscribed, so I would say if you don't want to miss any part of this series, I would highly recommend to subscribe into my channel. All right, let's get into it. So now let's talk about logic nodes, right? So honestly, these are the nodes I feel are most underappreciated when people start building workflow agents. And if you like to think about it, here is the simplest way to think about them, right? So every other node in your workflow isn't like your LLM node, which we already covered, your reg tool, or your data node loads like a business object, external REST. They all do something. They fetch data, they reason, they call APIs. But logic node are what holds everything together in between, right? So there are two of them. First is set variables, second is the code node, and they're both basically deterministic because we wanted to get out of them that we already know what should be the output out of them. And although defining workflow agent itself is a determinate because we know the end result what is going to be for workflow agents, so but these nodes specifically are also the determine what actually we are going to get out of it. So it means that there is no LLM involved, so there will be no creativity, right? No variability, no any surprises which will be there. Same input, same output every single time. And let me start with both of these. So when I will show you in Oracle Cloud, I will show you how both of these nodes work. Okay, let me start with code node, right? Just to explain it, like think of this as a JavaScript scratchpad inside a workflow agent, right? So whenever I need to do something mechanical like a parse a date, compute a threshold, restructure a JSON, like calculate a variance, so we will use the code node. It's fast, predictable, and it keeps that logic separate from your LLM call. Okay, and while I will go into the Oracle Cloud, I will show with an example, very specific example, specifically where these both nodes comes handy, like especially in case of pagination, which we have in REST API, right? And with that, I will show you. So let's get into it. So I have already built one node. This is AP logic node, okay, which I'm going to leverage as part of this. So I will go on to this edit mode for this. Now, this is workflow agents which I have already built, and I'm going to show you how exactly these two nodes will play a major role as part of the workflow agents. Okay, so this will be example for the pagination, as I said. Okay, so just to give you a context, let's say we are calling a business object that returns invoice, right? So let's say if we have 100 invoice, 1000 invoice, it as if you work with APIs, you know that API does not return all the data at one time. It has more data and then it returns one by one. Okay, let me just do a one thing just to show you, right? So if let's take an example of, I will say invoice REST API, and I will just open it just to show you, right? So this is invoice API. So I will just say get an invoice. Okay, or I will just go with get all invoices because we are talking about all data. So here, if you see, right, this is an example response body where we can see items, and along with items we has this, right, count, has more, limit, offset, links, and there is one more thing which comes which we are not able to see, that is total results. Generally if we have to use pagination kind of thing, because there are more records, because you can see here the count is coming as 25 because there is a limit of 25, so each time it returns a specific set of record. Every time we run, it will return a specific set of record, and then that's why these limits offset does come into picture. Now generally we started using with has more also, but has more sometimes create an issue. with limit and offset, not like a issue, but there will be too much of a hassle to use has more. And there is another field called total results. So what that gives, it will give along with, let's say for a count, which is for that specific retrieval of data, it gives how many total number of records exist within that API call. Okay, and based on that we will build a pagination and fetch all the data. And after this, what I will do, I will now show you how the code and the variable node, set variable node, is going to work for doing all this, right? Now I'll go back here. Now, as I was saying, there is a limit, right, which is involved because there is a limit in terms of number of records, right? So what we will do first, let's talk about set variables node, which is available under logic, the set variable. What this set variable do, it's just that if we would like to assign some column a value. So let's say here I am assigning fetch size as 1 or maybe offset as 0, a value, right? Which we wanted to use as part of API. But before, I will show you one more thing. Like here, if I go on to this add and try to select, I will only be able to select these variables. Now to set a variable, I need to create these variable first and then set a value and then we have to use. That's what the flow will be looking like for setting the variable node. So to create a variable, what we need to do, we need to go into this setting icon, go to this variable, and here we need to create a variable. Let's say if I give, let's say I'm just putting a random like demo. Okay, I will select the specific type. There are multiple data type for this variable which we can select based on the requirement, right, which we have. For now I'm just going with the string and say apply, update. Now if I come here, edit, and if I try to add, now I will be able to see that demo and I can select a specific value for this. So that's how I need to first create a variable and then I have to assign a value. And then I will show you how we can use this variable as part of the nodes, right? That also I will show. So that's about how we can assign the variable or value to the variable, right? Because we are assigning a value to the variable. And it for now I'm just putting a 0 or 1, but let's say if I wanted to assign a output from another node, let's take an example. I have this node, right? Fetch invoice, and I wanted to assign an output of that right node, or within that output the items node to that variable. So I can also have that node specific dot output dot something like the column which we are looking at. So we can have those node context sensitive expression also get assigned. So if I just say this, then it will come there. So what I'm doing now, instead of calling, let's say if I know that this fetch invoice node output I have to use multiple times as part of this workflow, right? So what I can do, I can assign that to a variable and then call well variable at the multiple times, right? Instead of just calling again and again that node output, node output, node output, what I'm doing, I'm just calling a variable that already have I value assigned from that output of that node. So that's what the purpose of variable is, just for the easiness, because we assigning once and then calling that variable and then again and again and again and again. If you've worked on the programming, this is very easy to understand. That's how in programming also we assign a variables and then we use multiple times whenever we need. So that's the purpose of assigning these variables. So just to show you, for now, as part of this demo, that we are assigning a value to this and also to this fetch size. That is a limit. This is offset. Now, what I'm doing, I am fetching an invoice. Okay. So what I'm doing, I'm fetching this invoices. Okay. And then what I'm doing, I'm assigning those variables. So now I will show you how I can assign the variables. So I will go into this plus context, then go to variable, and then whatever the variable I wanted to assign, I will just select. For now, if I say fetch size, then this is what will come. Likewise, if I come over here and go with the offset variable, then it will get assigned to that. Make sure when you are assigning this, you are clicking on apply, because sometimes what we do, we just select this and just say update. It does not get updated. So make sure to apply, then only that value will get assigned to a given parameter for a business object. I know business object I'm yet to cover, which I will cover in my next video, but just trying to show you that how we can assign a variable to a specific parameter or any specific value. Now, what I'm doing, that here using this business object, I'm trying to fetch all the invoices. Okay. And then what I'm doing, because I have to know that how many total number of records exist within that invoice, so that when I get a output, because we are building this agent, right? And as an end user, if I'm not getting all the data at one time, sometimes it becomes a issue because I have to ask again and again for the same thing. It will give just in multiple times, right? So what I'm doing, leveraging the code node. So code node, what that code node will do, as I was saying, that it is in JavaScript. And it's not like that you need to be a JavaScript expert to be able to create this code node. You can use any of the models which we have, like a ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, right? If you go there and provide you that I'm looking to create a code in JavaScript, although there are some limitations which I will talk about in a moment for this code node, but if you can go to those models and ask that I have to generate this or I have to extract this out of this, right? So you have to give that context. It will provide you a JavaScript node which you can use as part of these code nodes. So what I will do, I will just say edit. Now, before I go and talk about this, right, what I will tell you that what I'm going to do from this, right, what I'm actually doing, that because as I was saying, right, there are set of invoices which are there, right? There are total number of invoices which can be more. And I wanted to get all the invoice data at one time when I'm getting a final result. So what I'm doing here using this code node, I'm building a code where I'm saying that you have to get that data and then give me a final result, which is all the invoices. Okay. So now I will use again, go back to the PPT and show you how that works. Okay. So this is that. So let me break this down exactly what this code is doing. And I promise, even if you are not a developer, this will make complete sense by the end. Okay. So imagine this situation, right? We have 100 of invoice sitting in Oracle Fusion, and I want my workflow agent to process all of them at a time. But there is a problem, as I was saying, that API does not give you everything at once. It give you maybe a 10 record or 20 records, right? There is a limit on that, right? And that's just how API works. It's a safety mechanism basically to protect system performance, because if you try to fetch all the data at a time, it will create a performance issue. So that's why that API works within a limit, right? So the question is how we tell our workflow to go back again and again and fetch the next 10 and the next 10 until it has everything, right? And that's exactly what using the code node we will do. Okay, so let me walk you through line it by line, right? So first line which I use is this. I am saying, let's say how many total number of results I have, right? So what I'm saying, let total is just a variable, and I'm assigning that fetch data. If I go back to my this, so this is my fetch invoice. Okay, so and whatever the output is for the total results, I'm assigning that total to here. So this is just a value which I selected. It is just giving me a total number of record. Okay, so this is simply basically asking how many records exist in total. Maybe the answer is 30, maybe it's 200. We don't know yet. But this line goes and reads that number from the previous API call and store it in a variable called total. Okay. Now going on to the second line, right? Second line is again a variable where I'm saying fetch size, and here I'm providing a value from the variable which I have created or assigned a value to, right? That's it. Now what this doing, this reads our fetch size variable, the one we set earlier, right? In this example, it's 10. So we are saying that I wanted to fetch 10 records at a time. That's a limit in terms of one time I wanted to fetch only 10 records. I can set higher limit, but again, that will go on create issues in terms of performance. It will take more time to give that. So it's better to take less number of records at a time, like let's say 10 or 20, even 20 we can go with, right? So that's what this second row is doing. Now third line, that is let offset and then this bracket. So what we are creating an empty list and we're giving it a name called offset. Think of offset is like a bookmark. Okay, it tells the API don't start from the beginning, start from this position. Because if if let's say first we set the fetch size of let's say 10, the offset will be 0. But if next time again if API is this code is running, then it will take fetch size as 10. Instead of 0 it will become 10. Next time it will become 20. Next time it will become 30. So that's what it is giving me, a starting from 0 and then leveraging a fetch size each time to fetch more number of records. That's what offset does in API. So that's what it is doing. Don't start from the beginning, start from this position, right? Now moving on, now there is a fourth row. Okay, then comes this loop, okay, where I'm saying let I equal to 0, I is less than total, then we need to plus this, right? Earlier it was 0, then it will become 10, next time it will become 20, and next time it will become 30. So let's say if we have, let's say total results give me in earlier the first row, right here, the total result, if it gives me let's say 25 records, right? So what will happen, first it will start with 0, then it will go to 10 limit, then record certain 1 to 10, then it will go to the next phase, limit become 10, offset becomes 10, it will fetch next 11 to 20 records. Then on the next page it will fetch limit as 10, then offset becomes 20. So it keeps on decreasing with this limit plus plus plus, and then it will go on retrieve record 21 to 25, right? And 25 is the maximum, so that's why this will end with this. And then at the end this is all where magic is happening, what I would say, right? Because we are jumping each time all the way from 0 and jumping each time 10 10 10. So if we have 25, then it will stop at here, right? And finally we are returning that offset. So basically returning that list of bookmarks in an array, and that list get handed to a loop node so that it runs over time, one by one, right? So in simple terms, this code node is not fetching any data itself. It's just building a plan, a list of starting point, so that when we are running this on loop, we know exactly where to go next. So think of this like a librarian, right, who has 30 books to collect from different bookshelves, right? So before they start walking, they write down, okay, shelf 1, shelf 2, shelf 3, and that list is your offset, right? The walking, that's your loop node which will do that job. And the beautiful thing, you wrote that this logic once and change the fetch size from, let's say, 10 to 50. It the entire plan adjusts automatically, no rewiring, no rebuilding. That's the power of code node. So instead of, let's say, this fetch size, if we set the variable as 50, then all things will automatically happen. I need not to write another code, or everything will change all at once. I just need to change the variable assignment value and everything will change, right? So that's the power of code node. Now again go here, and now I will come here and show you. So this is what the same thing I just explained to you, what each of these rows are doing, right? Now next what I'm doing, I'm just looping it. And how I'm looping? I'm looping it through that same value, right? The pagination output. Pagination is nothing but the code node. And how I selected, I just went here, go to that pagination node, select the output result. That's what I did. Now in this, what I'm doing, I'm again doing the same thing, fetch all invoices. And here what I'm doing, I'm giving an offset value to the current item, right? Because it is looping. So it will loop into one by one, right? 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, based on the offset which we are getting out of that code node, because that code node working in a loop automatically, it giving me, providing me with that value. So it will run again one by one in loop based on that. Okay. And then size is going to be again that variable itself, the fetch size, and that's how it will work. Now what we are doing here in this next, so we will get all the data, right? But we will get data in multiple, because we have different offset for which we are running this loop, right? There will be multiple offset, so there will be multiple arrays of data which we will get. Now we have to combine all that data. Again, for that we have to use a code node, right? We are using a code node. And what that code node again doing, it is taking that looping output, okay, as a result array constant. Then what is doing, for each item, that means for each item it is iterating and then parsing a result. So json.parse is just a function which is parsing that item, and then it is extracting the item and then finally returning a consolidated array of all those looping items which you were having earlier. But again, we get one single loop, but at the end LLM matters, as I have covered in earlier episode where I covered the uh, AI nodes. I said that LLM node is most important, and you have to you are going to use this most of the time you build an workflow agent. So to print a response to the user, we have to build this. So what I'm doing here, I'm just saying generate only HTML, no extra text or formatting. Use an input JSON array to create a table. Output must start with this and end with this. So that's what I'm doing. Very simple LLM prompt I have given. I have given the input and just said that you need to create a table. What I can also do, that create a table and leverage a specific set of columns. Let's say we are fetching an invoice, we need a specific set of columns. We can write those columns that you need to fetch a specific set of columns. So I can write those column name and it will only fetch that data. That's what the beauty of LLM is. Now if I let's say if I run this, right, I will say, just say fetch all incomplete invoices. Okay, wait, I think there's something wrong. Let me just save it. Okay, and refresh this page. Sometimes when we are too long on the AI agent studio, it sometimes create these kind of things. What I will do, I will again go to this my AP logic node, and then run this. I will just say fetch all incomplete invoices. So now I will show you how this works, right? Each step. So first, what I'm doing, I am putting a fetch size variable as 0, 1 with output as 0. Why I'm doing this? Because I wanted to get how many total number of records this. So I will get that data using one record also. So I will show you how it does. So it get and use this values like size as 1, offset as 0. And now it is taking this data and giving me total results as 26. Okay, that means total number of incomplete invoice which exist are 26. Now we know. Now if I go over here, then what we are doing, we are setting over here. If you see in the background, first I'm setting a fetch size as 1 and then I'm changing it to the 10. So we can change also the variable value if needed. And then whatever the latest value we are assigning, that will be used if I'm using that variable in the upcoming nodes. That's what the thing is for the variables. Then what I'm doing, I'm using a code. So see, as the total number of records were 26, what it is doing, it is first giving me an offset of 0, then it is giving me offset 20, then giving me offset of 20, right? So 0, 10, 20, it is increasing by 10 because we set a fetch size of 10. And then I'm looping it through each of these offset, okay, 10, 20, okay, and then it is giving me all this data. But now we get multiple data. What I'm doing using this flatten response code node, I'm just combining all this data. And then finally I'm going into this print response, and then it will print the data in a tabular format for me for all the invoices. See, it is taking time because it is figuring out which columns to take. If we could have given the columns which we are trying to see, it would have been easier for an LLM to generate an output, but it will take some time now because we have not written in terms of the columns. So let's wait for a moment, and then the final thing which I will show you, that if let's say we change a fetch size from 10 to 20, how that works. Okay, wait, there is some issue. Wait, let me, there's some issue with this. I'm just putting it to specific column, let's say invoice number, invoice date, supplier name, supplier site, legal entity. Okay, I'm just saying this update, and then I will go with this for now. And now I will just run this. So I will just say fetch all incomplete invoice. It will just do all the things. That's looping. And then we get this, and now it will finally print the response. So now see, here we get it. So if you see, we get all the 26 invoices here with that given detail, the column which we asked for. Now only one thing which I will show you at the end, that is, let's say if we change this fetch size from 10 to 20, how this code node will automatically change. I'm not going to change anything else. So here in this, what I set the value as 10. For now, let's say I'm doing it 15. Say apply, update, not changing anything else and just running it. And I will just say go. Now you will see a beauty. For now, what I did, it is giving me fetch size of 15, and we get this all the invoices. Now the thing is, now it is first giving me from 0 and then it is giving me 15. And why that is only 2 which is coming, if I go back to my PPT again, so here you can see I put a limit of 15. Offset was 0 first, so 0 to 15, and then again 15, it will get increasing from 15. So 15 to 30 it becomes. So that we were having only 26 record, so that's why I just need 2 offsets. First from 0, then to the 15. So that's why it is just giving me that 0 and 15. So that's the beauty of code node. We just have to write once, and if we are changing anything, because we are providing an input, if input change, it automatically behaves like that. Or work accordingly. Okay, so to summarize, code node is for fast deterministic transformation. It can be for anything, and set variables are for carrying straightforward cleanly the values, and together they make our workflow predictable, auditable, and much easier to maintain. So that's for logic nodes. Thank you everyone for watching.